I remember the first time I opened my sister's makeup box like a thief. It was supposed to be a quick glance, a childish curiosity, just one sponge, one lipstick, one careless experiment. But curiosity has a way of becoming necessity. My name is Liam. By day I'm predictable. Project manager at a small design firm, neat shirts, sensible shoes, the kind of person people trust because I never ask for attention. By night I end up in my sister's room, fingers ghosting over powders and palettes, learning secret languages made of blush and shadow and line. Our apartment was the kind of place people call cozy, to be polite. 2 bedrooms that fight for sunlight, mismatched mugs in the cupboard, a balcony that smells faintly of jasmine in spring. My sister, Maya, was away at university most weeks, and when she went home for the weekend, she forgot to lock the box she treasured, a battered tin overflowing with eyeshadows, a world in miniature. I told myself 100 times I'd resist. I told myself I was only helping dust or returning an errant lipstick she left behind. Lies are small at first and then they grow. It started with a test. A stroke of eyeliner on a whim, under terrible bathroom light, my hands clumsy and laughing at themselves. The line wasn't perfect, but when I looked up, something in the mirror softened. It wasn't the line. It was how the line made my eyes look curious, mischievous, alive. I scrubbed it off and went to bed with a pulse I didn't know how to name. The next week the box was open again. So were the drawers where she kept skirts she never missed, a silk scarf folded precisely in the corner of her closet. I borrowed one like a dare. I stood in the doorway as if to admire her room, then shut the door and closed the world out. Isabella doesn't know. At least not yet. She's bedside warmth and late-night playlists, clever about tiny things, and somehow always 20 minutes late when it matters. We met at a gallery opening. She laughed at my terrible joke and we traded numbers over cheap wine. Her laugh is the kind that rearranges the furniture in your chest. It's why I'm terrified of losing her and why I spend mornings where the light hits the kitchen tile imagining how she'd look at me if I told her the truth. Telling her would be a risk I do not take lightly. Love is generous, but it can also be brittle when new truths arrive. My crossdressing didn't start as identity or protest, at least not at first. It began as alchemy. Makeup turned gray skin into color, skirts taught my legs a different cadence, heels reprogrammed my posture. There was an education in the mirror. How neck lengthens with a tuck of chin, how a different eyebrow angle invites mischief. Each successful touch left me buzzing. Each mistake taught me humility. Each success taught me hunger. Slowly, the ritual moved from secret to necessity. What was once an experiment became the only way to feel right in my own body for a few stolen hours. Work provided cover. We had late nights, client dinners, and deadlines that let me invent excuses for being out. I learned to schedule my transformations around Isabella's pottery class and my sister's board exam weekends. My closet became a map, a suit to be seen in, a cardigan to blend, and a silk scarf that smelled like someone else's perfume, my small talisman. The apartment, our apartment, became a stage I managed with the precision of someone avoiding a scandal of my own making. My family knew nothing. Dad sent the usual texts, "How's the project?" And Mom still called me my little boy on Sundays in a voice that folded me into childhood. Maya's absence made it easy. The key she left under the plant was an invitation I slowly stopped thinking of as theft. There's guilt, sure. There's the kind of shame that comes from hiding something tender. But there's also a thrill that makes every whisper of fabric a temptation. I tell myself I'll stop after one night, that I'll return the skirt, that curiosity will die. It never does. This story night begins ordinary. Isabella was at her sister's house for the weekend. Maya had gone home for a last-minute exam, leaving the makeup tin open like an offered secret. Rain tapped against the balcony and city light painted long streaks on the living room floor. I remember tracing a lipstick tube with my thumb, the metal cool and steady, and feeling my pulse flicker like a candle's flame. The decision felt reckless and inevitable at once. The lamp's light made my reflection soft. It was easier, somehow, to be someone else when even the city blurred. I lay out the pieces like a surgeon preparing tools. A skirt I'd crushed into a drawer, a blouse I'd smoothed in one panicked hand, a pair of heels that strained the balance in my calves. Makeup is arithmetic, blend, highlight, balance, and I learned to do it with the slow attention I gave to nothing else in my life. At first the thrill was private, deliciously absurd. Then it started leaking into my days. I stole looks at reflections in shop windows and felt a pang when a stranger praised a woman's coat on the tram. Strange, invasive pride swelled when someone complimented a woman's hair. Sometimes I felt like an actor practicing a part that didn't truly belong to me. Other times I felt like someone coming home. Fear lived with the excitement. Fear of discovery lived like a second shadow. What would Isabella think? Would she laugh kindly, shake her head, and step away? Or would she be stunned into silence, the way cameras can catch you off guard, and the magic collapses? Would my sister forgive me for handling her things like they were mine? These questions chased me like rain down the windows, persistent, small, impossible to ignore. That first night, I stepped fully into it. Heels, makeup, a borrowed dress that smelled faintly of jasmine. The mirror greeted me like an old friend and a stranger all at once. In the glass, the curve of my cheek, the careful arch of eyeliner, the way my shoulders dropped, the person looking back was softer and more dangerous than I expected. It was liberation layered with danger, like stepping across an invisible line you were sure you could come back from. By the time I heard the kettle click off in the kitchen, a cadence in the apartment that meant nothing and everything, I knew something fundamental had shifted. Whatever began as a simple theft from my sister's box had rewritten my nights. It had crept into my days. Now the question was no longer whether I would ever put on those shoes again, but how long I could hide the fact I needed to. And that need, quiet and insistent, would change everything. The next weekend came faster than I expected. It's strange how time feels when you live with a secret. Every hour you wait feels like stolen time. Every minute spent alone feels like permission. Maya texted me on Friday evening, staying at a friend's for the weekend. Don't trash my room. I laughed out loud, a nervous kind of laugh, because she didn't know how true that warning was. By the time the text arrived, I was already sitting on her bed, her open makeup box in front of me like a shrine. It wasn't about thrill anymore. It was something deeper, almost sacred. I told myself it was just makeup, just fabric, but the way my hands trembled told a different story. I'd spent days replaying the memory of that first transformation. The softness of the lipstick, the precise brush of mascara, the quiet power of becoming someone else. It haunted me during meetings, lingered behind my eyes even when Isabella was talking about something important. She'd notice my distraction sometimes and frown slightly. "You okay?" she'd ask, eyes narrowing, and I'd nod too quickly. Tonight, I wasn't just curious. I was chasing that feeling again. That calm. That dangerous calm. I spread everything out neatly. Foundation, powder, eyeliner, mascara, lip gloss, blush. Maya had enough products to stock a small boutique. I tried to remember what I did last time, but memory alone couldn't guide me. I watched a tutorial on my phone, volume muted, heart racing as I mimicked the girl's movements. Brush, blend, highlight. My reflection evolved stroke by stroke until something clicked in my chest. There she was again, the softer version of me. The one who smiled like she didn't owe anyone an explanation. I didn't have a name for her. Not yet, but she felt familiar. Almost inevitable. When I finished my makeup, I stood before Maya's mirror, assessing. My skin glowed. My lips shimmered faintly. The man I was in daylight had vanished somewhere between the blush and eyeliner. I reached for one of her dresses, deep maroon, satin, low neckline, something she wore for special dinners. It slipped over my shoulders like it belonged there. The zipper caught halfway, and I laughed quietly at the struggle, imagining how ridiculous I must look, half-dressed, panicking at the thought of being caught. And yet, even the awkwardness had its beauty. The reflection that met me wasn't perfect, but it was alive. For a long time, I just stood there, breathing, listening to the rain outside, the rhythmic tap of drops against the glass. Every sound seemed sharper, each one a potential threat. My heart pounded whenever a car passed below, imagining it was Isabella's. She had said she'd be out late with friends, but time always felt shorter when you were wearing someone else's skin. The apartment air smelled faintly of rose perfume and coffee. My reflection smiled back with a blend of confidence and terror. I wanted to freeze the moment forever. The mirror was my accomplice, my witness, and my judge. I practiced walking slow, deliberate steps, balancing on heels that weren't mine. The sway of hips wasn't natural at first, but my body learned quickly. There was power in posture, in grace. I felt it in every breath. My voice trembled when I whispered something to my reflection, testing the sound of it.
Softer.
Gentler. I smiled. It sounded right. That's when I heard it. The creak of the front door. I froze. No, it couldn't be. Isabella wasn't supposed to be back until tomorrow evening. My heart slammed against my ribs like it was trying to escape. I rushed toward the door, my heels clicking against the floor like gunshots. The makeup box was open, the brushes scattered, lipstick lids off. Panic flared in my throat. I yanked off one heel, then the other, tripping slightly as I tried to drag the dress zipper down, but it caught again. Liam? Isabella's voice echoed through the hallway.
God. No. No. Not now.
I'm here, I shouted, forcing cheer into my voice. My reflection stared back at me, horrified. My face, painted in her colors, was undeniable. No way I could wash it off in time. No way to hide the evidence. She was getting closer. I could hear the jingle of her keys, the sound of her shoes on the hallway floor.
Think.
I grabbed the silk scarf from Maya's drawer and wiped at my lips, smudging the lipstick horribly. Mascara streaked down my cheek, the foundation blotched. My hands trembled. The mirror now showed someone in between, half man, half woman, half truth. I ran to the bathroom, flicking on the light just as the front door clicked fully open. My breath hitched. Hey, Isabella called out. I forgot my sketchbook. Thought you'd be asleep by now. She stepped closer, her tone casual, but my body felt like it was under a spotlight. I splashed cold water on my face, scrubbing at the lipstick, the mascara. Red and black spiraled down the sink, but the stains clung like guilt. I wiped harder, panic rising. Everything okay? She asked, voice muffled through the door. Yeah, just, washing up. She laughed softly. At midnight. Her tone was teasing, but I heard suspicion under it. When I finally stepped out, face blotchy from scrubbing, my hair messy, I managed a weak smile. You scared me, I said, voice unsteady. She tilted her head, frowning slightly. Why are you out of breath? I shrugged. Just caffeine, maybe. She looked around. My stomach sank when her gaze landed on Maya's open bedroom door. The makeup box sat right there on the bed, brushes and powder spilled like evidence in a crime scene. Isabella took a small step toward it. Was Maya here? She asked. Every word scraped against my throat. No, she, left this morning. Huh, she said, brow furrowing. Weird. Thought I smelled perfume. My pulse roared in my ears. I forced a laugh. She must have sprayed it before leaving. She stared at me for a moment longer, then sighed. You're jumpy tonight. I nodded quickly, desperate for her to stop looking. Go get some sleep, she said, grabbing her sketchbook from the counter. You look like you've seen a ghost. When she left, the silence was deafening. My legs nearly gave out as I sank to the floor. My reflection in the hallway mirror caught my eye, faded makeup, trembling hands, a dress half unzipped. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The rush of adrenaline made my whole body buzz. I'd almost been caught. And yet, there was a part of me that wasn't horrified. A part of me that wanted to be caught. That realization scared me more than anything. Days passed. I told myself it was a wake-up call. I promised I'd never touch Maya's things again. But every time I opened the closet, every time I saw the faint stain of lipstick on a towel or smelled that familiar perfume, the urge returned. It wasn't a choice anymore. It was a pull, magnetic and irrational. I'd sit at my desk, eyes glazed over spreadsheets, thinking only about the shimmer of foundation and the whisper of silk. Then Maya texted, "Coming home early this weekend. Need to grab some stuff." I froze. The box. The scattered brushes. The lipstick I hadn't returned. Panic crawled up my throat. I cleaned like a man possessed. Every trace had to go. Every smudge, every stray hair. I replaced everything exactly as it was. But when I picked up the last lipstick, I realized it was the wrong shade. I'd mixed two colors by accident. The difference was subtle, but she'd know. She always knew. That night, I barely slept. I dreamt of the mirror. In the dream, my reflection wasn't me. It was her, the other version. She smiled as I panicked, whispering, "You started this. You can't undo it." I woke up drenched in sweat. When Maya arrived the next afternoon, she greeted me with her usual hug. "Hey, thief," she joked. "You look tired." I laughed awkwardly. "Work's been crazy." She walked straight into her room, humming. I followed, pretending to check my phone, pretending not to watch as she opened the box. She didn't say anything at first. She picked up the lipstick, turned it in her fingers, frowned slightly. My stomach dropped. Then she smiled faintly. "Did you touch my stuff?" she asked casually. I froze mid-breath.
What? No.
"Why would I?" she interrupted with a small laugh. "Relax, I'm kidding." But her eyes lingered on me for a second too long before she looked away. That moment was small, but it lingered for days. I couldn't shake the feeling she knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. The mirror didn't lie. Neither did my eyes when I looked at her reflection beside mine. Something in the way she smiled felt loaded, like she was waiting for me to confess. That night, when everyone was asleep, I found myself back in front of the mirror again. I told myself it would be the last time, the final time. But the second I opened the makeup box, I felt peace wash over me like warm light. The brush touched my skin, and the guilt melted into quiet satisfaction. The mirror smiled, and I smiled back. I didn't notice the soft creak of the door behind me.
Didn't notice the faint gasp.
Not until it was too late. "Liam?" Her voice sliced through the silence. Every muscle in my body went rigid. The lipstick tube slipped from my trembling fingers and hit the floor with a faint clink. I turned slowly, heart hammering in my chest. Maya stood at the door, frozen in place. Her wide eyes traveled from the scattered brushes to the reflection in the mirror, me. Or rather, the version of me I'd been hiding. Her mouth fell slightly open, not in shock, but in something worse, recognition. "You," she whispered, stepping closer. "It was you." I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat locked. The silence between us thickened until I could barely breathe. Her perfume filled the air, faintly sweet, suffocating. I felt like a criminal caught mid-act, every lie unraveling in the space of a heartbeat. "Maya, She held up a hand. "Don't." Her tone wasn't angry. It was calm.
Too calm.
I tried to look away, but the mirror betrayed me, showing me exactly what she saw. The eyeliner smudged but still visible, the soft contour on my cheeks, the faint shimmer on my lips. There was no denying it anymore. "How long?" she asked softly. I hesitated, then whispered, "A few weeks." Her eyes flicked toward the open box, then back to me. "You went through my things." "I know. I shouldn't have. My voice broke. I couldn't stop. Maya took a deep breath, her expression unreadable. For a moment, I thought she'd scream, or laugh, or demand to know what was wrong with me. But she didn't. She just stepped closer, eyes studying me like she was seeing someone she'd never met before. "You look different," she said finally. I didn't answer. She tilted her head. "Why, Liam?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "It started as a joke. Just curiosity. But then, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see myself anymore. I saw someone I wanted to know. Someone I couldn't let go of." Her lips parted slightly, but she didn't interrupt. I could hear my pulse pounding. "When I wash it off," I continued, voice trembling. "It's like erasing her. Like she never existed. But she does. She's here."
I touched my chest.
Somewhere inside me. Maya's eyes softened, just for a moment. Then she exhaled sharply and sat on the edge of her bed. God, Liam, she muttered, rubbing her forehead. You could have just told me. Told you. I laughed bitterly. What was I supposed to say? Hey, sis, mind if I borrow your makeup so I can look like a girl? She didn't answer. Instead, she looked at me again, long and searching. You're shaking, she said quietly. Sit down. I obeyed, without thinking. For a few moments, there was only silence. The air between us felt heavy, electric. Finally, Maya reached into the makeup box, grabbed a makeup wipe, and handed it to me. Here, she said gently. I stared at it. My throat tightened. She was giving me a way out. A clean slate, but I didn't move. You're not wiping it off, she observed softly. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. I can't. Her gaze softened. Then don't. The words hit harder than any accusation could have. I blinked, stunned. What? She smiled faintly. You think I'd hate you for this? Liam, I've seen worse. You're my brother. If this makes you happy, if this is you, then I'd rather you be honest than hide. Tears spilled over. I didn't want to hurt anyone.
You didn't, she said, then paused.
Well, except my lipstick collection. A shaky laugh escaped me, half relief, half disbelief. Then her expression turned serious. Does Isabella know? My heart plummeted. The silence answered for me. Oh God, she muttered. You haven't told her, have you? I shook my head. She'd never understand. Maya leaned forward. You don't know that. Yes, I do, I said, voice breaking. She talks about real men all the time. She'd never look at me the same again. Maya studied me quietly, then said, You're going to have to tell her eventually. Secrets like this don't stay buried. Her words turned out to be prophetic. 2 days later, Isabella showed up unannounced. I hadn't told her about what happened with Maya. We'd agreed to pretend nothing happened, though that was impossible. My mind replayed the confrontation over and over. The shock, the acceptance, the terrifying relief. When I opened the door, Isabella looked furious. Why didn't you answer my calls? My phone died. I lied. She pushed past me, eyes scanning the apartment. We need to talk, she said sharply. And don't tell me you're busy, because I can tell something's off. I followed her to the living room, my pulse quickening. Her tone wasn't just irritated, it was suspicious. I prayed she wouldn't go near Maya's room. She turned suddenly. What's going on with you lately? You've been distant.
Weird.
You barely talk to me anymore. I swallowed hard. Just stress. Don't lie. Her eyes narrowed. I saw the lipstick. My blood froze. What? She crossed her arms. The towel in your bathroom. It had lipstick smudges.
Red.
Not mine. The room tilted. Every muscle in my body went numb. Care to explain? She demanded. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. Who is she? Isabella hissed. Tell me, Liam. Who are you seeing? The accusation should have been funny if it wasn't so cruelly ironic. I shook my head quickly. It's not what you think. Oh, so there's something to think about? Her voice rose. I tried to calm her, but the panic inside me twisted into something else, something like surrender. Maybe Maya was right. Maybe I couldn't keep lying. Maybe this was it, the point of no return. It's me, I blurted out. She froze. What? The lipstick, I said, voice trembling. It was mine. She stared at me like I'd spoken another language. Yours? I nodded. I've been experimenting. With makeup. With clothes. I forced the words out before I could stop. It's not an affair. It's me. For a long moment, she said nothing. The silence was unbearable. Then she laughed, harsh, disbelieving. You're joking. I'm not. Her expression changed, disbelief melting into disgust. You're telling me you wear makeup? I nodded again, tears burning my eyes. It's not just makeup. It's who I. Stop. She stepped back like I'd confessed to a crime. I don't want to hear this. Isabella. No, she snapped. Do you have any idea how crazy this sounds?
You?
In dresses? Something inside me snapped. Weeks of hiding, lying, suffocating, it all poured out at once. Yes, I shouted. In dresses. In makeup. And for once, I feel like myself. The words echoed through the apartment. She stared at me, shocked. I could see her searching for the man she thought she knew, but he wasn't there anymore. She shook her head slowly. I don't even know who you are. And then she walked out. The days after that were a blur. Maya tried to comfort me, but I barely heard her. I felt hollow, like I'd been carved out from the inside. The world outside kept spinning, cars, voices, lights, but I stood still, lost somewhere between two lives that no longer fit. One night, I stood in front of the mirror again. The same mirror that started everything. I picked up the brush with shaking hands. My reflection stared back, bare-faced, pale, broken. And then, slowly, deliberately, I began again. Foundation.
Blush.
Liner. Lipstick. Each stroke brought me closer to her. The version of me who wasn't afraid. The version who didn't apologize for existing. When I finished, I stared at me and whispered, "Pretty boys don't hide anymore." And in that moment, for the first time in my life, I didn't. Days passed, but the echo of that door slam refused to fade. Every sound in the apartment seemed louder. The tick of the clock, the hum of the fridge, the soft creak of the floorboards. Silence had weight now. Maya stayed with me through most of it. She'd bring me tea, sit beside me on the couch, and let the silence stretch until it broke naturally. There was nothing to fix. I was broken in a way that couldn't be patched up with apologies. One evening, she came in holding her makeup box, the same one that started everything. "I'm leaving this with you," she said simply, placing it on my desk. I looked at it like it was a relic of my own downfall. "You sure?" She nodded. "You've earned it." A faint smile tugged at my lips. "You really think I've earned ruining your favorite lipstick?" She chuckled softly. "You ruined more than that, but maybe it was supposed to happen." For the first time in weeks, I felt a laugh rise in my chest. It came out quiet and shaky, but it was real. That night, after she went to bed, I found myself drawn to the mirror again. I opened the box carefully, reverently. Everything was in its place, the foundations, the brushes, the shimmers. My hands hovered over them like a pianist over keys. I took a deep breath and began. Soft strokes. Slow, deliberate motion. The scent of powder filled the air again, blending with my heartbeat. But this time felt different. There was no guilt, no rush, no fear of being caught. Only calm. I wasn't doing this to hide anymore. I was doing it to exist. When I finished, I looked up and met her eyes, my reflection's eyes, and whispered, "Hi again." She smiled back. And then my phone buzzed. It was Isabella. The screen glowed with her name, burning against the dim room. My breath caught. I hadn't heard from her in weeks. Hands trembling, I answered. "Hello." Her voice was cold. "We need to talk." My heart sank. "Isabella, Not over the phone," she interrupted. "Tomorrow. At your place." And before I could say a word, she hung up. The mirror watched me in silence. The next day felt endless. Every sound from the hallway made my pulse race. I changed outfits 3 times before giving up. Too plain, too obvious, too me. Finally, I settled on something simple, a soft sweater, jeans, no makeup. Just
Liam.
When the knock finally came, it was sharp and impatient. I opened the door. Isabella stood there, her expression unreadable. She didn't say hello. She just walked past me, her eyes scanning the apartment like she was searching for ghosts. "Where's Maya?" she asked. "At work." "Good," she said, turning to face me. "We need to be alone for this." The tension was unbearable. I wanted to speak, to explain, to apologize, but before I could, she held something up. A photo. It was me, wearing Maya's lipstick, eyeliner perfect, hair brushed back like I'd done for the mirror. The photo was printed, slightly bent at the corner. "Where did you get that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes were steady, unblinking.
"Someone sent it to me," she said at last.
No message. Just this. I felt the world tilt beneath me. "Who?" "I don't know." She took a step closer, her voice lowering. "But whoever it was, they wanted me to see this version of you." My heart was pounding so loud, I could barely hear her words. "Isabella, please." "Don't," she said sharply. "I'm not here to humiliate you." "Then why?" She hesitated, then set the photo down on the table. "Because I realized something." I was angry because I didn't understand. But when I saw this picture, I didn't see a stranger. I blinked, confused. "Then what did you see?" Her eyes softened just a fraction. "I saw someone who looked free." The word hung in the air like a fragile thread. "Free," I repeated softly. She nodded. "But you should also know this, whoever sent that photo. They're not done." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "I got another message this morning," she said, pulling out her phone. It just said, "If you think you know Liam, think again." Cold dread flooded through me. My mind raced. Who could have taken that photo? Maya, and I had been alone, or so I thought. "Someone's watching you," Isabella said quietly. I turned toward the mirror, its frame still glinting faintly in the dim light. My reflection stared back, calm, painted, composed. But behind that reflection, just for a second, I thought I saw movement. A shadow. I blinked. It was gone. "Liam?" Isabella asked, frowning. I forced a shaky smile.
"Yeah."
"I'm fine." But my eyes stayed fixed on the mirror. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure if I was looking at myself anymore.